Okay, well, welcome to a web dev tutorial by SBCS. You guys are probably preparing for the hackathon, so we're here to tell you how to make a basic website. The first thing you want to do is create a folder to keep all of your code in. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a folder. And once you make the folder, I'm just gonna go ahead and open that folder so that all of our code goes in there. So the first thing you want to do is make an HTML page, and you can name it anything. First, I'm just gonna save this file as, let's just say, I don't know, sample.html. And the first thing you want to do is start up your boilerplate. And you can do that by just typing HTML, hitting enter, and that'll autocomplete your boilerplate. For the name of the title, let's just assume that we're making a website for a bakery, right? So you can name it Baker's Point. Okay, so title tag goes in the head tag. And yeah, once you start that, you're ready to start your web page. The first thing that most websites have is a navigation bar. Here, this is an example of a nav bar, kind of. It's kind of like a little menu where each thing you click on leads to other links and has other purposes. So for our website, we want something like that. You know, maybe you want a quick reference to the home section, the contact section. It's just basically an easy way for the users to get from place to place on your website. For the nav bar, people usually tend to use some kind of framework to make it a little bit easier. Today, we'll be teaching you how to use Bootstrap. So first thing you want to do is grab the style sheets that Bootstrap gives you. So once you grab the CSS style sheets from the Bootstrap website, which we're going to be supplying for you guys, you can just go ahead and insert it into the head. And now what this does is that it gives you some easy classes to use so that if you want to make, you know, nav bars, tables, anything in your website kind of look nice, sometimes they have classes to already handle the appearance. So it saves you a lot of time doing all the tedious CSS work. So in the body, there is a nav tag. First thing you want to do is apply the class navbar. This is coming from the Bootstrap CSS. We can use the navbar default. And since we want our navbar to stay at the top of our website, we can say navbar fixed top. And within your navbar, you're going to want to start creating containers in order to better control every element of your navbar. So you need to create a div, class equals container. In the container, you're going to want to have a header for your navbar, which belongs in another div. You're going to want it to be like the main kind of button. So in our case, we kind of want to have a button called Baker's Point because that's who we are. So it's basically gonna, when you click the button, it's gonna bring you to the top of the page. So we're gonna go and insert a button. And for the class, there is a Bootstrap class called navbar toggle that collapses. And along with that toggle, you just want to reset the data toggle. Data, can't spell. Oops. I'll leave that empty for now. So this class is navbar brand because this button is kind of going to be the main point of your website, or in our case, our brand. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. Call it Baker's. Right now, this button kind of leads to nowhere because I didn't put a reference to it yet, but we're going to be filling that in real soon. But for now, we're going to make the rest of the nav bar. This is just one button so far. Oh girl, this is so rough. This is so painful. I hate the nav bar. Anyway, I love the nav bar. Okay. So for the rest of our nav bar, we're going to want more possibly collapsible items. So let's say in our nav bar, we want a quick reference to the menu, or we want a quick reference to a login page if we have one. Then that's when we're going to add the rest of that. Okay, so you can start up a new div because it's a new section. We're just going to use the collapsible class just in case we have anything that we want that's collapsible. Okay. And as we said before, the ID is vs-nav. And in this case, we're going to need a list of the items that we're putting onto our nav bar. And we don't want any numbers on it. It's not that kind of list. It's more of an unordered list. So that's why we're going to use the tag UL. And for this class, we're going to need the nav class and the navbar nav. And we're going to want to put listed items, probably 1 or 2 or 3. And let's say for the first listed item, we wanted a home reference. So we want a button where wherever you are on the page, if you click the home button, it'll take you straight back to the top of the page. basically kind of what the brand button did on top, but it's just good practice to have both. We're going to need to make a reference, so an anchored reference. Say the H reference is, well, we don't have the rest coded yet, so we can't exactly add that. But we'll call it home. And for this one, you can make this like an about section if you want to talk about your business. Let's just put another one for a menu. Okay. And some websites like to put the sign in login section on the side. So if for some reason you wanted a sign in and login system, let's say I wanted it on the side, we can do that by making another unordered list. But we'll have to change the class to nav bar dash right, so that it shows up on the right side of the top right side of your web page. And it's kind of the same thing. We want to make listed items, and we need to link them. Let's say this is going to be the sign up link. This one could be login. Yep, so that's basically the nav bar. That was probably a lot, and it's probably going to be the most annoying thing on your web page. But from here, it should be smooth sailing. So I'm going to go ahead and try to open this in the browser. So you can right click on the page, press open in browser to see what it looks like. And we have a thing, and it doesn't really do anything because we haven't linked it anywhere. So it's good practice to always be putting comments. So I'm just gonna mark this as, since all the code under here is for the navigation bar, I'm gonna just say that this is navigation bar. And let's say, I guess it's better to kind of plan out what your website is gonna look like. So I like to pre-make some of the sections if I have them in mind. So right now we're thinking about having a home, about, and a menu section. First thing I want to do is make a div for home. It's kind of its own section, so every kind of section needs a div. And there's nothing really much I want to put here. I basically just want to display the title. I can say, put it in H1 tag something, because it's big. Call it Baker's Plot. Since I know that I'm probably going to be styling this because I don't just want it to be plain text, I can create my own class. So this is where CSS is going to start coming into play. And I'm going to name it, well, first I'm going to put the container class with the container. Then I'll give it a class home. We can go ahead and check if this is showing up actually. and it's hidden under here, but we'll fix that. Since we want to kind of fix that little error, we're probably going to start wanting to make the CSS page. So this is a good time to show you how to do that. So within the folder of your project, you can right-click, new file. We can save this as sample.css. Make sure you have the .tsf extension. That's important. We're not going to purchase Sublime Text. And so I created a class called home, and this is kind of where the error is happening. So we want to fix the CSS within this class. So the way to do that in CSS is, since it's a class, you do dot, and it's called home. So you say home, and we open curly braces. And in here is where we set the kinds of properties that we want. So as you can see, or I guess as you cannot see, the title is hidden under the nav bar. So we're gonna want to put some padding in there, maybe center this a little bit so it looks more presentable. Okay. So from here, you're gonna wanna go back to your CSS file. And in your CSS file, you can say that for everything in the home class, let's say we wanted it to be padded from the top. So if we go padding, top, it wasn't that bad. So 10% from the top. So I'll give it a little bit of room. If we wanted to specify the text alignment, so let's say we wanted it to appear in the center, we're going to go text align, center. Let's say we wanted the font size to be something a little bigger. So we can do 8 Font size has a few ways of marking what size you want your text to be. EM is just one of them. You can also do it in pixels. You can go ahead and play around with the values so you can see, you know, is 8 EM big? Is it small? Who knows? Just test it out. So before we can even test this, I was gonna test it, but before we can even test it, we will need to link it to our HTML. So you're gonna wanna add it here. And the relationship to the HTML is a style sheet. And the type is text. And for the href, you want to take the relative path to the CSS file. So since it's within the same folder, you start with a dot, slash, and it's called sample.css. Okay. And make sure you save it. And if you open it in the browser, it's centered and it's padded. So that's how you know that it's correctly linked. If you made some kind of CSS change and nothing changed on the page, either you haven't linked it right, or you haven't saved the page, or something's going wrong. So even though we fixed that error, it still kind of looked bland. So we can go back to the CSS and we can add some other properties. Maybe we can make it bold. All right. Oh, cool. Moving on. And we can always go back to this home. I know it's looking a little bland right now, but this is supposed to be basic. So let's go ahead and start the about section. So div it's a container. let's say in this class you wanted to say a little blurb about your bakery or whatever, your company. First, I want to add a little heading. So I can put another, maybe H2. Say who we are. And at the bottom, I'm just going to write a bunch of text that explains who we are. Once you added your little blurb of text, you can save and open it in the browser. And there it is. And obviously it needs some work because it's looking a little bland, so we can go ahead and fix that right now. So we can use the about class that we made in here. Since it's class, we start with .about, and let's say we want it to be aligned to the center. Okay, and we can set the font size to 4EM. Oh, wait, bold. Open in the browser to check how it is. That is huge, but you know, it changed something. So we can make that a little bit smaller. Let's see.
Yep.
Good enough. All right, and this white background's kind of bland, so we can also change the background. In that case, we want to edit the body. So we say body. We can make background color and this is when you can use a color picker to find a nice color. You can look up a color picker on Google, something will pop up, and you grab whatever hex value you think is nice for your website. So in our case, this one. Okay, it's starting to look like something. I'm going to close some of these tabs.
Okay, so we're going to continue the menu part. We're already done with the about. So menu is also going to be very similar. It's going to be inside a div tag. So my class name would be like container menu. As we were like doing it earlier, it was like container about, container title. So similarly, container menu, and ID is going to be menu, right? Okay. Oops. Okay. So that is going to be your container menu class, and then I'm going to make like a tag, h1 tag. So like I'm gonna name it as menu so that it could be seen on our screen. I'm going to show you like the way I and Brittany together were making the website. So this is the website that we have originally made, and we're going to imitate the same thing. So this is going to be our menu, and that's how it should look. So this is a good way to, just see how we actually need to make. So you need to make sure that you have the menu as the h1 tag, and then we're gonna make little buttons for it so that when we click on the button, it expands to some kind of information for every item. So, okay, so let's get back to the code. So that's going to be our menu. The next thing we want to do is make some buttons. So this is going to be the button class, and I'm gonna make it as cakes for the first one. So for this, we are going to make use of JavaScript, and for JavaScript, you need to use we need to make sure that we have some kind of toggling so that we can see the stuff, and when we click on it again, it basically the stuff goes invisible and you cannot see it anymore. So we got to do that. So that's going to be our button number one. The other thing you need to do is you need to make a div. So the reason that we have to do is I'm going to explain it in some time. So we're going to require classes for all of these. So I'm just going to let it be as nothing right now. We're going to name it afterwards when we start with CSS and JavaScript. So this is going to be our div tag, and you will also require an ID for this. So I'm also making space for that one. And you're going to close the div tag. And similarly, the amount of items you want to keep in your shop. So like I'm going to keep like 6 items. I'm going to name these differently. So these are the 6 buttons that we're going to make use of. Let's refresh our page and see how it looks like. Definitely it's not going to look nice. You basically you can see it in like the left side. You see there's like cakes, muffins, pastries. So the reason it's looking like that is because we don't have CSS and we don't have JavaScript. So it's looking really ugly, but we're gonna go get to that sooner. So that's going to be our buttons. I think that's going to be for your menu. Let's move on to the CSS for this. So for example, I'm going to make my class name as, so let's name them, right? So I'm going to make this name as toggle, for meaning toggle. So you can name whatever you want to. Again, it's up to you. Make sure you're naming the same thing. And for the div tag, the class name, I can keep it as stuff. You can keep whatever you want to, and the ID is going to be bake1, right? So the IDs are definitely very specific, and you cannot have the same ID for everything else because that's not the purpose of an ID. So that's going to be your different classes and IDs, and we're going to make use of the same stuffs and IDs, classes and IDs in the CSS. So let's jump on to what kind of different properties we can use for it to look better and prettier, right? So we had like a top class, right? So I'm gonna make my top class, and I'm gonna give like a background color. I'm gonna give a padding of 15 or maybe 16 pixels. Then there's going to be width. So I want my tabs, right? Like the buttons to be 50%. Like I don't want it to be on the whole screen. Like it's not going to be spread out like 100%. It's going to be in the center with 50% as the width, right? So that's going to be my width. The font size is going to be like probably like 15 pixels. It's totally up to you if you want to like make it larger or like smaller, depending upon what you want to do. So that's going to be our font size. The color is going to be black, so it looks out. So that's going to be our color. So margin, again, margin, if you put it as auto, you will get to see what happens. So like when it does auto, it basically, you know, the margin spaces out from all the sides, from the left, right, and top and bottom, and it centers the whole thing. So the margin, if you keep it as auto, it's going to, you know, centerize the whole buttons, right? So that's going to be your margin. The display is going to be probably like block. You can check it out, what kind of displays are there. So I prefer to put it as block. You guys can check out other type of displays, right? Okay, that's going to be our tog. Now I'm going to have the class stuff, right? So we had something like stuff here, right? So I'm gonna make that. So let's see, stuff, and for stuff, I want to have a padding of 0 and 15 pixels, right? So that's going to be your I think left and right, or probably top and bottom. I don't really remember, but I think it's left or right. The max height, I want to keep it as 0, so that when you toggle, right, like when you want to see the stuff, so like for example, I can show you the website. So this is like when you toggle, right, like when you get to see the stuff, it will basically have like the maximum height, and it will not like, you know, go very far or like very short. So this is like the appropriate height that you want, so that you're gonna keep it as max height. The next thing you want to do is border radius, right? So let's have like a border radius of like 7 pixels. Try to play around and see what it is. The transition of max height, right? Max height 0.1 second, ease out. So you're gonna see what it looks like after we, you know, apply these properties to our HTML. So this is going to look something different. You gotta see that how it looks. This is going to be overflow. It's going to be hidden. There's going to be color. I'm gonna take color for this one as white. So you will see how it looks like, and text align is basically going to be in the center, right? So as you see, like, you know, like you want your stuff to be in the center. So make sure you text align as center, or if otherwise it's going to show you at the very left side of your button. So like you don't want to do that, right? Like when the user clicks on the item, the user will be able to see the list of items right in the middle, right? I feel like center is a good thing. So that's going to be your that will be it for this one. And let's see how it looks like. Let's see how it looks like, and let's refresh the page. So you see there's like the things are coming right in front of the page, and like it's in the center, right? So this is like the green color, and we see that the menu is, you know, very left side. So we gotta fix that, right? H1 is for menu, right? So let me see, why is it not in the center? So probably we can just like put it here, like it doesn't really matter. So we can center it. So it's gonna be text align, center, and you can also use the property of color. So you can make it as white. So let's see how it's looking like. Yay, we have like the menu right inside in the middle of the page, and that looks much better than when it was in the left side. So we have like basic HTML, CSS for this website. Now we're gonna work on the JavaScript. So like as you saw, like, you know, like these when you touch like the cakes, how it's turning into orange. And when you click on the cakes, you are able to see like the list of items, what you want to buy and all of that. So that's going to come in your JavaScript. So let's begin on working on our JavaScript, right? So as we all know that JavaScript always comes under the script tag. So let's begin doing that. So I'm gonna make my JavaScript file. So you can begin a new file and you can save that file first, and you can be like sample.jss, sorry, JSS something, sample.js, which is JavaScript. So you're going to save it as sample.js and make sure you're using the proper .js thing, like the way we're doing for .html, .css, similarly for .js. So that's going to be your JavaScript file, and let's see. So we are going to make a list of items that we want inside of our cakes. So like, for example, inside the cakes, we have velvet, we have $60, and we have home delivery option, and we have these different dates and times we want to sell the cake and all of that. So I'm going to make like, you know, like a list of items that I want to put in the array, so that when we iterate over the arrays, we can basically, you know, take every item and put it inside this button, right? So when you click on the button, we get to see like a list of items. So for sample.js, right, we gotta start by writing the JavaScript part of this website. Before that, we gotta link this with our sample.js, right? So that is going to go at the very end of your body. So a lot of people or students have questions like, you know, they see like JavaScript script right in front of the body, like right at the start. Some people see it right at the end of the body. So like, it totally depends on the kind of website. So if you want your HTML and CSS to load before the JavaScript, you gotta put it at the end of the body, right? And if your website doesn't really have any kind of HTML, it's more of like a JavaScript website, so you can put it anywhere. Like the script tag doesn't really have to go at the end. So this is going to be the sample.js file, and I'm going to close my script tag. So make sure you do that. Now we're going to go in the sample.js file and start writing the JavaScript, right? So as I said, that we got to make like a list of items. So for example, I'm going to make bake one. Bake one is equal to a list of items. So it's going to be like cakes, and probably I want to make as like velvet. You can totally do whatever you want. Be creative as much as you can. And similarly, we're going to, you know, copy paste this whole thing for the next 5 more times. So now there's like the main part for the JavaScript, right? So like, one is wondering, how do we get these, right? Like how, I'm not even using like the unordered list and list items, right? How do you get those kind of different elements? I'm not even manually writing everything down. I'm just making an array. So like, how do I basically make use of that array and, you know, write these all different items, right? So that's what JavaScript does. It makes your job easier. So for this, we're gonna write like a function. So JavaScript is very similar to the way Java is, but definitely there are a lot of differences. But just, I want to say that, you know, if you're not sure how to write a function, JavaScript is basically, you know, you started with like the word function and write any name of your function. So I'm gonna write it as link. You can name anything you want to write, and I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna iterate over this array, right? Like the array that we have written. So you can name it as array or array, whatever you want to put it as. So I'm going to put it as array. And this is going to be my function. So let's begin writing what the function says, right? So let's start making like the menu, right? So menu is going to go bar menu, and so So if you guys have already studied JavaScript, everything starts inside the document, right? Like it's about the DOM, right? If you have read about it, heard about it, Google it if you want to like study more on it, because these are very important functions you can use anywhere to make your page look prettier, right? So document dot create element, right? So I want to create element for every item. So I'm going to do create element, and you see like how it's turning blue. So that means like that's actually a valid function, right? So I'm going to make a UL tag, right? So everybody knows what is UL. UL is unordered list. So I want to make, so all of those different list items are going to go inside the UL tag, right? So make sure you are creating an element from inside the UL tag, right? So we're gonna say it as UL, and for better purposes, I'm gonna write the comment so that everybody remembers what we are doing. So it's going to create a menu. The next thing we want to do is iterating over the array, right? Like whenever you want to iterate over an array, definitely you want to make use of the for loop, the very simple, or maybe not simple, but the very famous for loop, right? So the for loop starts with, for in Java, as it starts with int. For JavaScript, you could use var. So I is equal to 0, I plus I is less than array, which is the name of my input, right? That's the name of my input. So array dot length, right? So that's going to be your condition, and we want to increase I by 1, right? So that's going to be that. I'm going to write var item is equal to document dot create element, right? Like this is the same function, right? Like there's nothing that we're doing exceptionally different or something that's going to be very hard. It's very simple functions that you want to use. So for this, you're using list items, and you're going to list every item inside the UL tag, right? So that's like the simplest function. And what does it do? It basically creates an item, right? It basically just creates an item. So that's going to be that. The next thing we want to do is, append every child of that array, or like whatever. So we have all these array items, right? We want to append them to every item of the list, right? So everything should have like an li tag, right? So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna take the item tag, the item variable, item dot append child, item dot append child. These are some functions that you need to remember. You can always Google what you need to write there. So like I'm gonna write append child document dot create next node, right? So this is something very new. Again, make sure you Google all this stuff so that you understand what's going on. So this is going to be array, and I'm going to iterate over every I, right? So when I input I as 0, I'm going to get this 0th array, right? So 0th array is basically bake 1, right? So that's going to iterate over every array and every item, and it's going to put it together with the li tag. So you don't have to do it manually. So that's going to be your step, and comment would be set its contents, right? So we're basically setting up the contents that we want to put inside the li tag or the ul tag. So that's going to be your item. The final touch, we want to put it as, you need to make sure you're using everything inside the ul, right? It's not only about li, because like ul is the main guy, right? So like you need to make sure you're using everything inside it. So what you're going to do is make sure you're using the menu, and you're appending everything, whatever we have made until now, like everything which is inside items, you're basically appending it to menu. So that's going to give you like the whole list, right? So this is something that's going to go inside your for. And also, as everyone knows, every for loop, after it ends, you basically need to have like a return statement. So return menu, right? That is what we want to return. So this is going to be our main JavaScript, right? Like make sure you know everything that is going on over here. I'm gonna put a, you know, add item to menu, right? So that is going to be like a comment for this. And you're mainly done with the main JavaScript, and we have some kind of things we need to add. So let's add the contents of bake, right? So we have different bakes, right? Bake 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we gotta add every bake to the bake, right? So basically there's like a name confusion. I don't know if you're able to recognize this bake. I can take you back there. So in the HTML, right? So in the HTML we had these different IDs, right? Bake 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are the IDs that we're going to attach the whole JavaScript with, right? So make sure you're using the same bake that you were using for the ID, right? So that's going to be your comment, and you're gonna basically write document.getElement by ID. So this is a very important bound property. So if you look up on internet, you are gonna get different kind of functions. There's going to be get element by class, there's get element by ID, and there's like different sorts of different properties, or you can say like the functions, which are very inbuilt. So you just like basically just need to use it directly. So I'm gonna write here, and the class name goes inside here, right? So class name is bake1. This is not the bake1 which you're using in the array, right? This is the bake1 which you're using in the ID. So make sure you're using get element by ID, meaning that the ID we were using in the HTML. So that's going to be our bake1. And then you're gonna append child, and we're gonna call the function that we basically made just like 5 seconds ago. So that's like the function that we wanna call, so that we make use of that function. And we're gonna call the link. And the link function requires you to put an array, right? Like some kind of input. So for this, the input is going to be bake1, right? Because that's your array. Basically, if you see, there's like the arrays that we have made until now, let bake 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That goes inside your link function. Like that's going to be your input. So that's going to be your bake1. And similarly, we're going to repeat the whole thing for like 5 more times, or probably in total 6 times. So why we're doing this? Because we actually have those many buttons, right? So we have a list of 6 buttons, right? So I'm gonna make the list for those many times, and that's going to be the contents of bake into your bake, right? So that's going to be, so we have already added the elements, right? So let's see if that works out. It's not going to work out because of the only reason that we don't have the toggle button, right? Like we need to use the function toggle, or you can say like we need to write some kind of code so that it toggles, right? Like this is like the original website. So when you click on cakes, it toggles, right? It gives you information and it gets back, right? So we got to do that, right? For this, we already have the list items ready, but it's not going to show up because of the only reason that it doesn't have the toggle option. So let's begin by writing some toggling stuff, right? So I'm going to start it with our menu items. You can name anything you want to write. So menu items is what I'm going to name it as. So document.getElements by class name. So as I was saying, that there's different kind of ways of writing it. So this time I'm going to write it as class name. So that's going to be your class tog, right? So you look back to your HTML, you get to see that the class that you were using was class tog. That's the same thing I'm going to use for my document.getElements by class name. So that's going to be that. And we are again going to use for loop for the only reason that we actually need to toggle the stuff. If you were using jQuery, this was pretty simple. You did not even use for loop. you can do it in different ways. So jQuery basically has more simpler functions, and you do not need to write a lot of stuff or a lot of coding, right? So jQuery already has like the function called .toggle, so you can use that for toggling your items, right? So for this we're using JavaScript, so we can basically make sure we're using for loop. So that's going to go in your conditions. I is less than menu items dot length, and I plus plus, and then you're gonna take every menu item. So we have all the menu items, right? So by class name, basically we're taking everything that exists inside that class, and we're going to add an event listener, right? So make sure you Google this again. It's always good to see what are these functions used for. So it's going to be event listener, add event listener, and so I'm gonna explain this in a little bit. Just make sure you're looking at what I'm doing. So this is going to be function, and this is going to be this dot class list dot toggle. So this also has toggle, right? JavaScript also has toggle, but make sure that you need to iterate over every array or every list item for it to work, right? But if it was if it was jQuery, I think it was much more simpler to toggle, right? So this is going to be dot toggle, and you're gonna write the class or maybe like the thing that you want to toggle as active, right? So we're gonna go and make this active thing again in the CSS. I'm gonna show that you in a little bit, but until then, let's keep on going. So this is going to be your this class list dot toggle. The next thing you want to do is var is equal to var content is equal to this dot next element sibling, right? So next element sibling, and if content is content dot style dot max height, then content dot style dot max height is going to be null, and the thing that goes inside the else part is going to be the same thing, content dot style dot max height is equal to content dot scroll height, right? So I think you might have understood what's going on, but I'm still gonna make you explain this. So this is going to be content.style.max height is equal to content.scroll height plus pixel. And I'm closing my tag, my else, and then this is going to be the function, and I'm gonna close this with this because that's a function. And next thing I wanna do is complete the tag, right? So that's going to be that. I don't know, for some reason it's showing something weird for what I don't know. Because I gotta complete the function, right? I think I already completed it over here, so that's the reason why it's not actually accepting it. So that's going to be our JavaScript, right? So let's see how it looks like, right? Before that, I actually want to make the active class and all of that because we have to use that somewhere. So let's go to sample.css, and after the talk, let's make the active. So active, dot tog, right? So when you hover over every tog, basically what you're gonna do is change the background color, right? For example, I'm gonna show it to you like the way you see. I'm like you know, just hovering over these buttons and it's changing the color. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do as background color, and I'm gonna give the color as F29455. Make sure you go to the color picker and change whatever color you want it to be. So I'm gonna put that as my color. Let's see, do we have anything left for this JavaScript? I hope so that we are almost done with the whole thing. Just making sure if there's something that we need to add. So I think we're good for now. And let's see, this whole thing. Okay, so make sure, I think I have done one mistake because like the L is not looking like it's actually in, it's not looking like it's correct. So like make sure you're using the small L. I think I was using the capital L, so it was not really accepting it. So let's see if it's actually showing up. So, okay. Yay, we see, when we click on it, we see the stuff that we wanted to see. So yeah, that's it. And we are basically able to see the stuff we were basically putting inside every button, right? So that's something that is for the JavaScript part. And I don't think there's something that we have done exceptionally different than what we have made now. It's just a little different with the kind of you know, font that we're using. We're using font as Lato, so like you can search it up, whatever font you want to use, you can use that up. And this is going to be your website. So we're finally done with the session. If we are able to like send out the code, we will definitely do that. You can take out the most from this. You can put any picture you want. Basically, it's up to you. It's about how creative you want it to be. So this is what we can do. It's totally up to you, whatever you want to do. So, you know, it's also functioning properly. Like, you know, when you click on home, it basically gives you like the baker's point. When you click on about, it tells you more about our shop or the bakery. And when you click on menu, it basically gets you to the menu part, right? So you're able to like see the menu that we have on our bakery shop.